All right, welcome back. This is exercise 3 in CAD 105, Intro to Creo. We're going to be working on some secondary feature modeling, so getting a little bit more complicated. Here is our task for exercise 3. We're going to go ahead and model this body of a socket driver here, a ratcheting wrench, minus some of the components on the inside of it, but the main body of it, we're going to go ahead and get that one taken care of. So we're going to use a lot of the tools that we've used in some of the previous exercises in labs and combine a bunch of them together to make something that is a little bit more complicated. So here we go. Getting started. Start file new. We're going to do a new part. We're going to go, I'm going to call mine E3 video because I have some other ones in there. And starting out from a blank space, we are starting on, let's see here, that would be, there we go. So page 31 of the guide manual that you can load and download if you don't have it yet, either from D2L or from vertanux1.com, vertanux1.com. And remember, you can also pick up some of those other walkthrough videos that Chris Sikora did as well. So if you want a second opinion on things, or maybe a little bit of help of a lab that I may or may not get into during the course of this video. All right, so let's go. Let's turn on our plane so we have an idea of where we're going. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start off by doing an extrusion. It's going to happen on this front plane here. Reorient so that we can see what we're doing back to the front. And zoom in a little bit. So first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a center line. So left click on center line. I'm going to left click where I want that to be, right on that vertical axis. And second click locks it in. Remember, this center line here is strictly for sketching. This one over here is as a reference inside of a body. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to draw a line. We're starting out and we are working on this sketch right here. We have an 1.5 inch diameter, a 1.2 diameter, and a difference between those two of 0.75. So 3/4 apart. All right, let's go ahead and get that line in there. We're going to do one kind of here in space, not touching anything. Get something that looks pretty similar. Center click to end that one. And right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and mirror off of that center line we created. And then we're going to go ahead and put our arcs in. We want to do the 3-point tangent arcs. And we're going to start on the one side on the bottom here to loop around, click on the end point of that one, and then get this top one in here, loop around, click, and we have something that looks pretty close already. So double center click to get out of that tool. And let's go ahead and put some dimensions in. So left click on dimension. We're going to find the center of that arc. We're going to come down and we're going to find the center of that arc. Left click on both of those. Center click on the outside and set up that distance between centers, 3/4 inch. Everything scales once we do that. We have diameters listed for both of these arcs. Typically, when you're dimensioning an arc, you're going to use that radius rather than a diameter. In this case here in the drawing, you've given a diameter, so you can do it either way. We know the radius of an 1.5 inch diameter circle is 0.75, but we're given a radius dimension here already. And let's see if we can go ahead and get that changed. So if we left click on the radius, look right here, we can flip that dimension and turn it into a diameter. Let's do the same thing down here. So left click on there, grab this diameter symbol there, and we're going to change this to 1.2. 1.2, right? 1.2, 1.5 on the top, and 0.75 between the two of those. Okay, let's go ahead and also make, to start off here, the center of this lower one. Let's go ahead and set that as coincident with the origin here. So coincident constraint. grab the center there, grab that line there, and it's not liking it probably because this dimension is there. Let's go ahead and try that one more time. See, doesn't like it. Doesn't like it still. There we go. Now we got it. Okay. So we're on there. We're looking good. Let's go ahead and hit OK on that to finish that. Let's go ahead and look at this from the side. We know from our directions here that we want 1 inch of extension from the midplane in both directions. Remember that Creo, these newer versions, are a little bit unusual with how they want to do things. And if you're coming from some other places where you might be able to really easily do midpoint extrusions with draft on there or with an angle on them, it's a little bit odd in here. So we got 1/2 inch because we want 1 inch total between the two sides. Let's open up our options so we can add that taper to it. We want 7 degrees of taper, but remember to make sure that you get that 7 degrees the right way. We want the larger side to be on that plane. So let's flip that sign to a -7, flip the other way, hit OK, and that half is done. Make sure that we have our extrusion selected. We're going to mirror this body because we can mirror with sketching. We can mirror also with solids as well. So we're going to hit the mirror. We're going to select that plane, and we're going to mirror that over to the other side and hit OK to finish that up. All right, let's go ahead and look at this from the front. So we're looking dead on. Let's start a sketch. We need to go ahead and offset a sketch because we're going to cut into this head of the ratchet a little bit. So we're going to start on this face here. We're going to come in a little bit, and we're going to use the offset tool. Offset tool allows us to go ahead and pick a piece of geometry and then set how far, following that exact same thing, a distance away from that do we want to essentially copy that geometry and offset it by a certain distance away. So we want to do 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so that brings it onto the inside. Let's see if we can go ahead and add some of these other ones. We want to get everything though, so let's hold down that shift, and that's going to help us get all of that. And then hit enter. And then we have that edge offset by a distance of 1/8 of an inch to the inside. Let's hit OK. Let's go ahead and extrude that guy. We want that to be cut down 1/8 of an inch into the face. So let's reverse our arrow. Let's go ahead and change that distance to 0.125 so we don't cut all the way through everything. And hit OK to accept that. And now we need to cut out a couple of holes that intersect with each other so we have some room for the mechanics for the gears and everything of that ratcheting device. So we're going to go ahead and start another sketch right on here. And again, we could go right to extrusion, but generally speaking, I'm going to go sketch first unless I say otherwise. And to get this circle, we're going to use a concentric circle instead of a center and a point circle this time. And then what we need to do for that is we need to grab that arc that we're going to use and we're going to be concentric with. And I'm going to set up one circle by left clicking. And automatically it's got me still in that tool, so I'm going to center click once to get out of there. And then if I come down to this other arc, I'm still in that concentric circle, easy to say on a Sunday. And I'm going to click right there. I'm going to bring this in. I don't want those two to touch each other at this point. I don't want them to be the same size. And we're going to center click to get out of there. And go set our dimensions for these two. Double center click to get out of the tool first. And then we're going to go ahead and put that. We have a 1 inch diameter on the top one. lower one is 3/4. Correct. Yep. And then we're going to use this delete segment tool, which is similar to trim as you would find in some other softwares. So we have our options to click on individual segments, and it's going to cut it between where there's from one intersection point where two lines intersect, and then where two lines intersect the next time, a segment at a time. So there's one, we'll do it again, there it is. We can also left click and hold down and draw a line through those segments that we want to remove and knock out a couple or more, or a bunch all in one shot, whichever way you want to do it. Obviously, getting through things a little bit quicker is the way we want to do it, so that second option is usually pretty good. So let's go ahead and finish up that sketch and extrude. We're going to want to bring that down to a depth of 700 thousandths, or 0.7 inches. So let's make that change, 0.7. And hit OK. And then one last thing that we need to do for that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to need to make a couple of through holes on the bottom of this that are 0.375 in diameter. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do another sketch starting down on the bottom of that face where that extrusion ended, the last thing that we did. Create that one. Let's go ahead and use those concentric circles again. And let's find the outer edge of the circles that we want to be concentric. Okay, there's one. Oh, nope, I messed that one up. Left click to start, drag in, left click to end. And then you're still going to be in that same tool, so I'm going to center click to back out. And I'm still in concentric circle. I'm going to come find the edge of this one, left click once, bring it in till it is equal, because those sizes, we got that equal constraint there that pops up. That's snapping. There we go. So those are both the same size. I'm going to center click to get out. And then I'm going to go and get the dimension of that one right. It's 0.375. Hit OK. We're going to extrude that one. We're going to flip that around so we're cutting through. Let's change the depth to through all, so that if we were to change this wall thickness here, we would still always be cutting through all the way through that thing. All right, so the head of the ratchet is essentially done. Remember to pan if we want to do that. We can hold down the shift key and then hold on the center wheel on the mouse, and then we can pan all over the place. I'm going to move up a little bit, give myself a little bit of space. And we got to go ahead and start the handle of that ratchet. So we need to connect the neck of it, basically, and create the neck that's going to run between this head and then the body of the ratchet. So to do that, we need to set up a plane. We need to create another plane. And what we're going to do is we want to have it be parallel with this top plane. So we're going to click on that top plane. And then we can go ahead and drag that plane down so it's facing the right direction there. Let's set that distance, because it says that we want it to be 4 inches away from that right there. Okay. We got that 4-inch offset on there. Let's go ahead and center up our view again. We're going to hit OK. Got our plane. Let's start an extrusion this time on that plane, which was selected already. So let's go ahead and draw a center point circle. Get it right on that origin. We're going to go ahead and center click on the circle twice so that we get the diameter to come up, the dimensions to come up. We're going to change this to 0.5. So 0.5 right in the center, because remember the center of this is right in the center of that body too. So that's why we want to lay these things out and keep those planes and kind of remember where we're at and think through where we're at a little bit as we get going, because it makes our lives easier throughout the rest of the project. And that's going to come with time. At first, you're not going to be there. You're going to have some stuff laying off in weird places, and then you have to go ahead and move some things. And you can do that with your constraints to bring things back, but plan those things out. Think things out a little bit first before you go ahead and get going. So I'm going to hit OK to end that sketch. And my extrusion is started already because I already started in that extrude mode. And instead of just dragging this up, because remember at some point it's going to pass through this body, and we're going to have a solid sitting in the middle there, which we don't want. Okay, we want to not see that solid, but we want it all the way into there. So the easiest way for us to do it is to go to this depth and choose to next. So what's going to happen when we do that is this body is going to extrude and it's going to stop right where this face is. It's still going to be joined to it, but that's going to be the end point of it. All right, so let's hit OK. Bring our orientation back to the front here and think about what we got to do next. We got to get started on this handle, which is going to be 4 inches long, an inch wide. And then also we have a mark here that the top of that handle is going to start 3 3/4 of an inch from the center point of that lower cutout in the head. All right, so let's go ahead and get to a front-on view so we can see. We're going to go ahead and do an extrusion. We're going to click on that front plane. Okay, and then we're going to draw a rectangle. And we're not going to be particular about where it is or the size of it again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead at this point in time do a center rectangle. We'll come and draw one over here. All right, so we got that. Click on there to get some dimensions. And look at that, it put a nice dimension in there because we know the top of that needs to be 3.75 inches from the top. So thank you. Thank you, Creo. That was really helpful. And then let's go ahead and change this one here to 4. And then this final one down at the bottom should be an inch wide. 1 inch wide. All right, so we know we want to move this sketch over here. So we're lined up here. So this top edge, we just slide everything over. Okay, if we go ahead and we delete this dimension and change that to 0, this is going to stop right here. So that doesn't really help us. Let's go ahead and put a center line on this rectangle. Choose center line, left click once, drag in the direction you want it to run, left click the second time to lock it in. Okay. Now, all we have to do to move it over, let's use one of our constraints, that coincident constraint. So we're going to click on that point. Okay. Make sure you grab the point, not something else. And then we're going to click on the center line. There we go. And then it's right where we need it to be. So let's go ahead and hit OK. Our extrusion is going to begin. Let's turn off to an off angle so we can see. Our handle overall should be 3/4 of an inch wide. It's going to have some draft on it as well. 7 degrees on that one. So it's going to be 3/4 of an inch wide. So here with the dimensions on there, we know it's 3/4 of an inch wide all the way. That's the total depth of that handle, and we're only doing that half at a time. So eventually, if you're new to this, the fractions of things and the fractions to decimals and all that conversion is going to start to, those numbers are going to start to stick in your head. After a while, 1/4 of an inch, 0.25, half an inch, 0.5, but then you get in the weirder ones, the less common ones, 1/8 of an inch, 0.125, so on and so forth. But until you get to that point at first, if you can't remember what half of 3/4 of an inch is, just type in 0.75 divided by 2, and Creo's going to help us out. Give us that 0.375. All right, so let's look at that. There's no taper on there yet, so let's add that. Let's add 7 degrees to it. Look at that. We're running the wrong way, though. We want things to flip the other way, so let's change a sign, make it negative. That looks good. We're going to hit OK. We have extrusion 6 selected. And then all we're going to do is go ahead and mirror that because we can mirror bodies. We can also mirror elements of an object. We're going to click on that front plane, and then it's going to copy to that other side. We're going to hit OK. And we're looking pretty good. At this point, we have something that definitely looks like a ratchet handle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and clean things up a little bit, make that a little bit more user friendly because those nice sharp edges on that handle and some other places. Fillets do add strength structurally to things. Obviously, they do. So do chamfers. So it's not just a comfort thing; it's also a strength thing as well. So we're going to add a couple sets of those. The first ones are going to be 100 thousandths. In radius, so let's go ahead and choose the round. Let's set it up here in the radius to 0.1. And let's go find those things. At this point, we really don't need these planes anymore. They're just kind of distracting right now. So let's go ahead and get these things rounded over. So we're going to do all the sides, the long sides of these. On the handle here. So there's one. Make sure you get the right spot. Don't click on the face because the whole thing's going to have that. Let's go ahead. Let's move that over because it's really hard to see there. See, we're not getting that corner. We want the corner. That's what we want. We got those four corners. And then we're going to come up and we're going to grab the back edge of this. And Creo's going to go, oh, we want that the whole way around, don't you? And we say, yes, thank you so much. And we come and grab this over here on the front side to give us a nice little finish on there. So that should be our 100,000th ones completed. Last one, we're going to do some 60 thousandths ones on the top edges, the bottom edges, and then where this neck meets the handle and the head. So another set of rounds to 60 thousandths. Okay, let's go find those edges. We want that right there. We want this right here. And that. And that. That one. And that one. And then we want to get that one there. That one right there. And that should be all of them. So go ahead and hit OK. Those are wrapped up. We got our body of the ratchet, which is done. Now, if you want to go a little bit farther with that one and go one more step and put some text on there, just, for practice. So we're going to come up, we're going to start a new sketch on that handle. I'm going to hit OK. We're going to start the text. Okay, when we draw this line, that line is going to tell us essentially how big that text is. Okay, let's move this out of the way. So let's type this in. I'm going to go intro to Creo. Okay, I'm going to make that maybe a little bit bigger. I can mess around with how things are aligned horizontally and vertically from where things are. Okay, let's go back to that left one. That looked good. The vertical. It's at bottom. Let's go there. Let's leave that. Top, it doesn't matter. It's okay. But just so you know that you can play around with that. You can play with the spacing and all this other stuff. But if we just go ahead at this point and hit OK. All right, we can go ahead and grab a hold of this and move it around to the center of things. And then we can zoom in a little bit and we can go ahead and increase that font size because that dimension right there is going to help us do that. So I'm going to go 0.45. That looks a little bit better. That's probably a little too big. Get it somewhere on the handle. Yeah, we got to make it a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller, 0.35. That looks okay. Get it into position more or less where we want it to do by left click holding and dragging it around. Drop it in there, hit OK. And then just like anything else, we can extrude it however we'd like. We can either emboss that or raise it or cut it into the part. I'm going to go ahead and cut it into the part this time. I'm going to only go 25 thousandths into there, so 0.025. And we're going to remove material. And we're going to hit OK on that one. You know what? No, I'm going to flip that around. I want that to come out. So we're not going to remove material. We're going to bring that back out. So we have it raised a little bit. We're going to hit OK. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. All right, then real quick, if you want to change the finish on there, we can come to View. We can go to Appearances. We can pick one. I think there's a nice chrome finish in here. There we go, a chrome one. We can go ahead and draw a fence around that whole thing. Change that appearance to chrome. There we go, beautiful. Now we go ahead and change appearance. We can change color to blue. We go ahead and paint that text. It selects all of it for us at once. We hit OK up here. We have blue text on a shiny metal body. And if we want to go really crazy, we can go into the render studio and look at that. And Creo will give us a nicely rendered version of that looks somewhat realistic. All right, so that is exercise 3. So go ahead and get that one turned in. Remember to create it and create a PDF from that. So we're going to go print, do a quick print. Quick print, and then print that up and submit that on D2L, and you are done with exercise 3. Second video will be posted up real quick on one of the 2 labs to help you out with that. And that is it for the time being. See you soon.